one thing I've learned. If you don't hold their feet to the fire, everybody gets burned.
Hold on. Before you start waving around that freedom of speech thing, when you're in a crowded movie theater and you scream fire, you better be able to smell smoke. You come on this radio show and you start saying incandescent things like that, you better have more behind you, pal, than just your thumb. I've been listening to talk radio for years, and one thing I just can't stand is when the host has to, push his way on the people, beat the callers into his way of thinking, extending his ego, or when the callers call in and say something so outrageous and the host lets it go unchallenged. The sign you're on the road to truth is the lack of contradiction. You want to find truth, you just don't simply believe somebody because of their authority or their degree, or you listen to what they say, you test it against reality, and you hold their feet to the fire.
All right, we are back, and we are live, Feet to the Fire. I'm your host, James, out the end. Check the Black Knight of Talk Radio. We are live. This is on Spreaker, which is the audio-only deal. And later on, it should be transmuted into Facebook, and then to the various formats. I'm drawing a blank on the one I BitChute. I'm sorry. It's the one I really focus on. And then Gab just has a link to it. We are live. I haven't done the show in a while. Been really busy. My mom has been put into a rest facility, retirement home. However, having, medical issues that has to be dealt with 24/7. And so I've been working hours and then going there for the weekends to help her out, relieve the duties of my siblings who take care of things during the week. I really haven't any time. Well, today at work it was a short day and a long day tomorrow, so I said, you know what I'm doing? I'm going to say some things. A lot of stuff's been on my mind. I want to do a lot of stuff. And I start thinking about it while I'm driving, and I have, this is good, that's good, I'll talk about this, and then it's never doesn't happen. So I said, today I'm doing it, period. That's it. And here we go. What I want to mention is that the title, I guess, of this is The Entropy of Materialism, which is it's a real physical fact as well as a spiritual and philosophical view. And I want to get to that. I'm going to talk to it now, but I also, along the way, I want to bring out how things are deteriorating, how the entropy is destroying things, breaking it down to their greatest, the simplest component. Actually, I lost the page. I want to actually read about what entropy is, to understand there's several different ways to use it, to describe it. One of the ways, and the ways that I'm meaning it here, I'm looking, wow, I can't find the link that I had before. But the way the material world is that things are breaking, the more complicated a system, it breaks down into a less complicated system. And it keeps going on and on until it's on the absolute lowest level. And so, a sun will burn out and it will leave embers after it. The sun goes off, and then therefore the life, which is counter entropy on the planet, will die out with no sun or what have you. So the forces of the universe is toward breaking down the complicated into the less complicated. That's the natural flow of things. If there wasn't life pushing against it, because you plant a seed, the plant grows, and it gets bigger and better. It makes more seeds. As its lifespan ends and it breaks down, it passes on the seed to the next generation. Of course, this happens in animals, humans as well. So life is like the counter force to entropy. However, as I just mentioned, and individuals or plants, animals, will die themselves. There isn't an eternal way to stay alive in this space-time continuum. It is there for a purpose. There's a certain time to be here. There's things to do, and that's a whole other show. But the point of it is it will end up with death. And the Ray Kurzweils and the world are trying to download yourselves into computers, which can be repaired and thus give the illusion of being perpetual or eternal. Of course, till the sun explodes, but by then they'll have a rocket ship to go to another planet that will have time. You see how they got this set up. The problem with all of this is that the actual life force cannot be downloaded in a computer. Oh, you don't know that. Well, yeah, I do. I mean, I don't know it like I can't demonstrate it and show it doesn't work, but you can logically look through it that if you look at a human being as a sum total of the knowledge of that person has and its abilities to comprehend and process data, then you can save that process into into a computer and keep going. But they don't even know the process. I mean, for one, I have read on this stuff. I'm interested in it. I'm not like a Luddite or nothing, but I'm interested in it. But the problem with it is that it is delusional. You don't even know how the brain and life and the consequences of transferring that into a machine. It's really wild. Because say you can actually figure out how to reproduce inside a completely foreign substance, an analog, if you will, albeit digital, of the person. And that person is actually downloaded into a computer. And that person dies in the process or will die eventually, but they live on in the computer. They're not that person. At best, you can make a copy which will have, if it has a consciousness, it'll be the consciousness of the AI in the machine. I mean, it's ludicrous to walk down this way. So the point is, it all breaks down. So when someone is a material, worships materialist, materialism is going to be the worship, meaning the focusing of value and importance and working your ends toward that material. It will end up I was going to say entropatically. I don't even know if that's a word. Entropatically destroyed. It'll be destroyed by empathy and broken down. It will. I mean, the DNA's got a timeline in it before it breaks down, and if we can fix that timeline, it can keep going on and doing itself. But that's the whole point of the. That you have to do that. You see, they're just assuming you can do that. And you can go in there with mRNA technology to rebuild and fix the DNA, and it can keep doing it. I mean, I've talked to my doctor, and this is what he's so excited about this, is that you'll be able to not only cure disease, but prevent future disease by altering the genes and so forth. Now, it's great on paper. Well, again, missing in this sterile view of it is the political ramifications of psychopathy, using this as a tool for for power. I mean, that's the breakdown of the system. When you have a person who is not spiritually based and therefore has input and a higher view of things, you're going to have basically a smart animal, and the animal is going to want to survive. And I actually, there's some animals that are nicer than humans, but you're going to want to survive. And when you focus on materialism, all it is material, getting more. Look at the people who are racing to be, you got the billionaire, and who's going to be the trillionaire, and who's going to, all this stuff. While meanwhile, by sucking up the wealth that has been, the acts and the creative abilities and actions of people have been transmitted into like money. I mean, here's $10. This was worth somebody's effort for something, rather than the effort itself, in a spiritual sense, doing something for somebody, helping each other, and so on. You have this action being just kind of like downloaded from a real live person into this arbitrary piece of paper, whose value is shrinking by the day. So it's the idea of trying to have any kind of material focus is that is truly what Satanism is. Satanism is the worship of self and the worship of matter, which is what self is all about. So, Aleister Crowley famously says, "Do as thou wilt," because that's all that matters, is what you wilt. You are the center of the universe. You are all that matters, and what your desires are the reason for life. Now, even a Crowley knows you die, and I don't know, I mean, there's various cults and whatnot about afterlives, but while people are living and powerful, they just don't think about that. They're thinking about they're having a good time. This is the deal. They're either, having a passively good time, accepting ways that other people are giving them to for recreation, whether it be watching or playing sports or what have you, movies, whatnot. Instead of taking this passive approach, there are people who are actively doing things. But again, the only where it's going is eventually will break down. And there's if I had this thing, I don't have that. I'm going to try and talk and look it up. Which, as the years compile, it gets a little harder to do two things at once. So I'm sure I can find it quickly. I quoted it in the text that's in the beginning, in the opening on this, in Matthew 6, I think it's 30. Let's see if I can. I typed it in wrong, of course, so therefore I have to do this. Full chapter. Okay. There's a nice little talk that Jesus talks about in here, and said, "Therefore, I tell you, don't worry about your life, or what you'll eat, drink, or about your body, or what you will wear. Life is not life more than food, is the body not more than clothes." Now, it's interesting that he doesn't talk about wearing diamonds or having Maseratis. He's talking about even just the basic things of life. Look at the birds and they fly in the air, they don't sow or reap, and so on and so on. Why do you worry about clothes? See how the flowers grow in the field? They don't labor or spin, but they have clothes, blah, blah, blah. Is that how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire? How much not more clothes you, how much more for you, you man in little faith? The idea being is you're higher on the entropic scale, on the conscious scale. So if these things are taken care of by the system, but that's not even the point I want to get to, is that the key verse for today on this, the point is, it says here, "For the pagans run after all these things, and your heavenly Father knows you need them, but seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and these things will be given to you as well." And I looked at the word pagans, and to me, it looks, for this, that I put in there the word for the materialists, seek after these things, the material. And, I'm going to move it out past clothes and food and all that, because he was talking to the basic people who are trying to survive, and so it's very important to him. Of course, we may find that out personally, as things deteriorate, we'll get back down to that point. But the point that I'm looking at here is in material. If you're looking for material stuff, if your value is on material, then you're missing the point. It's supposed to be on the spiritual. What is the spiritual? Well, if you look at life of a plant, let's say, and animals, their goal is to grow and reproduce and carry on the system. Carry on. Now, as a human, you can do more than an animal or a plant. I mean, you could teach, you could mentor, you can, the next generation, you don't even have to have children of your own. Let's say you can't, for whatever reason, you can help others. So you have this idea of you want to keep the flame alive. That is the imperishable. And eventually these individuals, including yourself, will move on into the spiritual. And if your focus has been on the material and building material wealth, where, there's another verse that comes to mind, put your love into material, which rusts and moths can eat, and destroy and whatnot. Put your energy into something of spiritual, immaterial. Lay up treasures in heaven, and so forth. And this is the whole aspect of the contrast between materialism and spiritualism, is that you're using the material world to grow spiritual future. Material world is only here for a short time. I mean, it's obvious throughout all of history. Everyone dies. Everything destroys. Governments pass. Companies pass. The technological creations become moot. Even fads change. Of course, a lot of that is driven so people buy new stuff, but that's not the point. All these things pass away, but friendship, love, helping one another, music in a creative and listening or creative sense brings joy with it. There's these things that carry on, and even though eventually the instrument will deteriorate, the person who plays it will die, the memory of that song carried on in, records or whatever, but someone else does something somewhere along the way, and eventually we move on to an area where we can make even bigger, dimensionally unknowable in greatness of what the music would be here, an analog of here to there. It's like, whoa, So another verse comes to mind that those who have given a little and done well will be given a lot. So we see through the glass darkly, looking forward into the other. And so this is another problem I have with people who materialize, we'll say heaven. They talk about heaven streets of gold and have all these different jewels and whatnot, and it's written in the Bible. And I'm saying that the people who were trying to grasp these things were trying to put what is the greatest, most beautiful, most precious, most wonderful thing that you can think of, and this is what they see in it. I mean, we can't understand heaven. It's beyond it. So the whole next level is beyond our comprehension. All we can see is echoes of it. We could see analogs of it. When you see a beautiful flower, that's an analog of a, quote, flower in the next level and so forth. You focus on the material, you're not building these treasures for heaven. You're focusing on the material, which is a suicide. It will destroy you. You can't have enough money. You can't have enough sex. You can't have enough drink or whatever that would be considered. And you can't do enough. It'll wear out. I mean, one of the problems when people take antidepressants, right, is that they wear out and you need to have more, and you need to have more, and they switch to a different one, and the next thing you know, your brain is shot. Now there's no going back because you've now messed up the brain, or they have, by doing these things. So it's like if you're focusing on the material, you are a Satanist. If you're focusing on material, you are committing suicide. If you're focusing on the material, if that's the most important thing in your life, you are going to be destroyed and disappointed. Now, again, we are in a material world. We need material to survive. And so it's not like you cannot, just sit in a cave and don't eat. Though I've heard some swamis in the East have done that, and no comment on that. But the idea of this is that you have to use the materials to build the spiritual future. You know, the materials are here for you to create joy on a inner and higher level rather than joy on a lower level. I mean, one of the questions I've received in the past was, you know, I'm gay and I'm a Christian, you know, am I going to hell? Can I be a Christian and gay? And it's not, that's missing the point. And I told the person, I said, it's got nothing to do with gay. It has to do with the focusing on the material. You're focusing on sex, in this case, a particular type of sex. And if you follow even what sex is tied to procreation. So therefore, it is even thought that, in the Catholics, they got a point there that procreation it's part of the whole sex procreation thing. And when you pull that out of the context and then focus in on the sex, you're now distorting and pulling the material out of the spiritual. And so it's a wrong question, you know, trans or gay or Christian or non-Christian. You have to raise the box. One of the problems in dealing with things today is you have an either or. Is it this or that? Well, it's not. It's both and neither. That's why I like the idea of the qubits in quantum computers. It's yes, no, yes, no, yes, and no. So, you know, you have these options, neither yes nor no, and yes and no, yes or no. No, you have 4 options, and that's kind of funny to me, because this is what it's about, is when anybody comes up and breaks a concept and breaks it into pieces, you've now destroyed the concept. You've destroyed it. It's like taking apart a machine to make it what makes it tick. Well, you find out, but now the machine doesn't work. And you don't even know it all. I mean, when you do it, you go like, I don't know what that's for, you know, and you destroyed the machine. The idea is to look at the natural formations in the world, especially in the living parts, because that's the force against entropy. It's a tree growing up against gravity. Those are all the little clues that I think I get from God in the creation of the universe. These clues of things pushing out against the destruction for a time, for a season. And in that time, the spiritual creation happens. The material collapses, the spiritual moves on. Now, if you're a materialist and you live in a material world, all you care about that material, money, sex, power, and all that. When you move to the next level, you're not going to like, well, you're not there because you didn't grow any spirituality, so therefore there's nothing there, and you die, there's nothing there. And I think a lot of the atheistic materialists think that. They think like there is no, there is nothing there, so let's just do this stuff, and if I die, I die. You know, people argue about whether or not, okay, so now I'm seeing his face, so I can't think of his name right now. That's great. Jeffrey Epstein. They think, well, whether he commits suicide or not. And I think, if he's a true sociopath or psychopath, which is apparent because apparently he didn't have any care for those who were being abused and used, it makes sense. When you think, if you're a atheist and you're living for material and now you're going to be stuck in jail the rest of your life, what's the point of living? You're done. You're not going anywhere. It's over. You had to run. So, I mean, it's not beyond a stretch that people would do something like that because they just want out. So, but the problem is that that's not the case. There is a this is a building ground for the future spirituality. And if you don't do that, your next level will be based on these type of things. So if you build a world of negativity and abuse and power and all that, you will go to that system. Now, we call it hell and heaven and hell. But the way I've broken it down is that it's not something that you earn. I mean, it's all grace. I mean, life and your soul is grace. And if you want to build toward a good life, well, there's a lot of things in this world pulling you back. So again, the Spirit of God is that spirit that pulls you up and out of the entropy and destruction. And so this is where I follow the teachings of Jesus and Jesus and his effects in my life and God's in my life, because I'm working against the entropy of focusing on just the material and negative and dying, which is what the satanic influences want. I mean, people argue whether there's a Satan or not. To me, it's irrelevant, because obviously there is a force pushing us down negative to destruction. So it doesn't matter what you want to call it. And when you talk about divine power to survive through and beyond this stuff, that's obvious too, because people do it all the time. It happens. And I have myself chose to follow Jesus' teachings and literally follow what he says. Because a lot of people say, Jesus saved me, and now they sit back, kick their feet up, and relax. That's not it at all. That's not at all. I mean, Jesus goes on and on and on. Read the red letters sometime. It goes on and on about the cause and effect of what you do here. So it's not just that simple. It's all by grace. It's all by the love of God that all of the positive stuff happens out of this. There's no question about it. I don't take any credit for it. I mean, my credit, if I can use that term very loosely, is by choosing to follow and moving my foot forward following. I stumble, I get better, I do this is good, this is not good. And the only credit I can give myself perhaps is even that, if you look at some of the theology says that even that is God urging you on. And I don't want to get into the dogma and split hairs. This is the kind of the simple way to look at it. You look out into the world, and nature will show you. Nature will show you that when you develop in your consciousness toward love, you're going to help other people and other things. There'll be creativity, there'll be love, there'll be helping each other, and each other will do better with each other's help than just by alone. You won't have to manipulate anybody to get what you want, because what you want is what everyone wants it too, in your flavor of it. When you're in a band for playing music, I use a lot of music analogies because I like music and I've been in music. Not everybody can be the front singer. The person who's going to be the front singer, if they want to do it because they want to be a front singer, material. If they want to do it because they rise to the occasion that their voice is best suited for that, spiritual. You want to be the lead guitarist because you want to stand out front and wiggle your fingers around, material. But if you are in a creative ability that you rise to that occasion of doing it, then it's a natural flow. You don't force to do it. This is why people, if you lived in a world that was based on the spiritual principles, those people would rise into corporations which would be based on serving people. They used to be to some degree, even with bad people running them. The whole point of these people were to create something that helps somebody in their life, a tool, a system, a situation, a medicine, a new recipe, all for the betterment of time. Now it's all just to make money. It's all for the material, and therefore everything's deteriorating. The food's getting cheaper and getting poisoned because it's cheaper to make, and people are making they're buying the packaged thing and heating it up rather than spending the time to learning it and making it. So you have the laziness as well as the greed involved in it. And all the seven sins are all seen here, and it's all tied to material as opposed to the spiritual. So materialism leads to death. Materialism will break down. Material will break down and go away. This world is finite. But it was meant to. It meant to be a ground where you could learn and work and build for the future. It'd be like if you went to school. I'm trying to come up with analogs. You go to school and you're in third grade, and the whole goal of life is to be in third grade. Oh, that's ludicrous. The goal of going to school, well, it used to be anyway, now it's programming, but would be to find out, by taking these various courses, you find out where your talents are, where you're led, and then you're given information along those ways. You go to university, was where you take general courses, you learn the general, certain kind of general wisdom and knowledge of history and science and math and all that. in literature. And then you start to gravitate toward a major. And so, like, I'd like to do that. And now you get courses that are more based on what you want to do. And you get to a point of a graduation, and it just keeps going on. I mean, whatever you're doing, when you go into your practice in life, if you're you're going to be like an engineer or a scientist or, I don't know, an artist, you're going to continue on that journey. You're going to learn new traits, new things. You're going to have ideas, and you're going to create. That's the whole focus of it. Now it's like you go to school, you get programmed, and if you follow their program, you get a little piece of paper, which certain groups will then hire you. And as you see this approach, as the quality deteriorates, and as the workforce deteriorates, it's all entropy at work. If you're not spiritually moving forward, you're deteriorating. It's going to all go down. It's going down. I mean, we had a couple of banks going on. I mean, the whole banking system, talk about entropy. The battle against entropy is all lies. And once reality kicks in and that balance is due, so to speak, holy cow, the collapse will be tremendous. However, if you lived real along the way, use that principle of growing, helping, creating, going on. But again, everything in life has a limit. I mean, there's golden ages in the past, there's various civilizations, but most of them have deteriorated because they've gotten into this materialism. They're lazy, want to get quick bucks. I mean, some of these people who do currency trading. I mean, what does that do? What does that create? How is that in better humanity? I mean, it doesn't. It destroys a lot of people who get crushed underneath it. It's better to put $1 on the lotto, really, because there's less harm in that. However, there's people who put whole paychecks in the lotto and don't realize how ridiculous that is. You buy one ticket, you have virtually no difference in chance of winning than if you bought 1,000 tickets. So, I mean, it's all, again, materialism drawing you. And it will kill you. I mean, eventually you will, and that's really the spoiler. Eventually we all die. All right, so no matter what you do, no matter how successful you are or how unsuccessful, you're going to die. So the whole point is, well, why bother living? If I didn't believe in an afterlife and God and the whole system that I got here, there is no point in living, frankly. So this is the whole deal. Is that's just why materialism leads to insanity. Materialism leads to suicide. It leads to destruction. It leads to a amplified entropy of that individual. And then that group of people add to the entropy of the system in general. The system will collapse faster if people are materialistic in how they do things, because materialism breeds entropy. Entropy is death. Death of the system, death of the media, the medium, death of all of it. And look at the grandmasters of old. Their music still lives today, even though they're long dead. I guess you could say Henry Ford still lives, because of the Ford company, but they're not going to live forever. I mean, the stuff that's going on in these companies are all going to crush down. And I'm not an expert on Henry Ford, so I don't, I can't tell you, that there was some. But the way you look at it is, it's kind of practical. What I'm saying is not like some kind of high polloi, high spiritual, kind of it's pretty practical. It's all going to break. So, you use it to create the future. The only thing that's going to survive the entropy of space-time is your spiritual. Well, you can't prove it exists. Well, I don't know. I think there's plenty. I mean, you can't. Each one of us isn't going to all of a sudden have a vision from Gabriel. But if you did, still people would explain it off. Well, it must have been, like look at Scrooge. What a great movie. I like the movie, 51 movie, but it's a great book, Scrooge. Here's Jacob Marley appearing right in front of him, and he's thinking it's because he ate something. I mean, this is the point, is that one of the things going from the material to the spiritual is there is this step you have to take. what a great another great scene in a movie is Indiana Jones when he was going to go get that cup for his father. His father was dying and he had no choice. It looked like he was going to step into a chasm, but the paper that was written down from those before him say you have faith and step out into it, and he did. And turns out it was an optical illusion. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that materialism doesn't want you. Materialism says, don't step there. You're going to go on this cliff. Yeah, never mind your dad. Try to live and all. This is materialism. Spiritualism says, I'm going to go out and step. I love my father. I'm going to go step out and save him because if he dies, it doesn't matter, because I love him. And he saved him. And there was reason for it to step. It wasn't like it was just willy-nilly. He had reasoning, but he had to take it on faith. I mean, all of those things have errors. I mean, they're not perfect examples, but they're good ones. I mean, in a flawed material world, there are good spiritual examples amongst all of the trash that's in the world. And when you see, when you out to see the nature and you see the wonder of nature, it's fabulous. It's wonderful, fantastic. But again, it's all going to end sometime. So it's for us to see and to somehow spiritually advance from. I mean, I know if I see a majestic scene, I am inspired. I feel inspired inside. And now what the trend is to breaking down to traditions, the statues, the cultures, the ideology. I mean, all this stuff is meant to, again, materialism fuels an extra load of entropy which destroys. All destroys. You have to resist that. I mean, we have to right now, especially as we look out into the world now and seeing this stuff happen. It's like, I feel like we're a plane and we went up real far, high, and the engines are starting to die a little bit. And we're going like, well, hopefully it'll get it started and it'll go, and maybe they will. But, the higher and faster you go using the physics there, the less chance of you being able to get out of that. And so, but, this is a very good reason to start building a spiritual basis. And that's great. The great news on that is it's never too late. I mean, there's people who've been mass murderers that have seen spiritual awakening in prison, and now they're waiting to be executed, but they're happy at this point. I mean, they are sorry that they've done whatever, and they just do what they can. Well, what's the rest of my life? What can I do for the rest of my life to help? Instead of hurt. It's always there's never too late. You can't. But the problem, say you got someone who's into trafficking children. I mean, I don't want to say these things. A lot of times they YouTube algorithm, but think of the worst case scenario stuff. That person can turn. And the good news on that is if the person does turn, they will be a huge warrior in fighting those things that they used to be in. They'd be huge. But once you get down far enough with the entropy, I'm going to call it the, what's the word? Momentum. The momentum of entropy, when it gets, the greater it is, that momentum is harder to turn. Now, it's not harder to turn like with God. It's harder for that person to want to turn and ask God or what have you. Once you get that down, and people say, well, eventually when I get, a little older, I'll settle down and I'll start figuring stuff out. But there's this momentum of entropy tearing things down, and it tears down your mind, your spiritual connections. And so when you get down that far, well, technically you can, the actual probability goes down with it. And so right now we're in a period of time we're in right now. I call it the revelation, the revealing. We're revealing things that have been hidden. And boy, how about the stuff going on with the J6 and all these other things? All the stuff's coming out that's been hidden. Revealing things have been hidden. So now what are you going to do? Are you going to fight to keep them hidden? Are you going to just simply ignore them and continue on in your entropy as you destroy yourself and those around you, going down into materialism type of thing? Or at some point, are you going to turn on? This is what this whole revelation is very important. You're getting like a chance. All right, this God, in my opinion, God has intervened in space-time with pulling off the covers. Trump may have been, of all the things he says he is or was, or people say he is or was, what all the things he could have been is simply the method to pull off that tarp, to have people come out and show their real colors. And we're seeing it. We're seeing it all through the media, in films, music, TV, newscasts, all that kind of stuff. We're seeing it in politicians. We're seeing it in corporations, in creation. We're seeing it in individuals. And we're also seeing individuals who go, wait a minute, that's no good. We can't do that. They're making a stand. So you're seeing those people who have seen what's going on, and they've just said, no, that's it. I can't deal with that. I can't do it. And they're turning from it. So you have the revelation and you have the decision, and you're going to either go down further, faster, harder, or you're going to turn. Right now, it's a turning point. This is it right here. And it's individual. I'm talking about individual. I mean, whatever happens corporately, but the individual now can go, you know what? I'm just not going to do that. It's destroying me. I'm destroying others. They're destroying me. I got kids. I got grandkids. I got people with me at work. I'm a manager. I'm an owner. I'm a neighbor. I'm going to not do that. And it's great because you don't have to have like 30 years. Like you don't have to, hey, I'm 60 years old. I'm going to change now. Well, you're already 60 years behind you. I don't know how much you can do. It doesn't matter. That is great. There's that one Bible, Jesus talked about the prodigal son. And the bottom line is that there's more joy in heaven in the repentance of a sinner than in the righteousness of a righteous man. I mean, it's great to be a righteous man or woman. It's great, right? But the joy is the one person was dead and now they're alive. That's the joy. That's the focus. That is what we have the opportunity to do here. And everything that happens that illuminates the evilness of the materialistic society is waking up more people. And I'm not talking in terms of the political waking up and all that. I'm talking about the personal changing inside, which not only will bring life to the individual, but will help all those around him. I mean, when you say you're in the darkness and you light a match or you light a light, I mean, you light all around you. There's people next to you, they don't have a light, but now they see your light is illuminating what they're doing. This is what the whole point is. And it doesn't mean you got to have a torch or you got to have like 1,000 halogen watt light, You just, as you go through life, you do what you can, which is in that positive sense. And this is where the Beatitudes are the greatest thing. The greatest work ever written, spoken by Jesus, greatest things ever written, is it tells you exactly how you should naturally feel inside if you're on the spiritual course. And as you go, I can't feel like that, Well, as you keep walking toward that positive force, this is where the power of Jesus, the Holy Spirit, God, however, that is the power. This is why I believe in Jesus and his teachings and the helper, as Jesus sent. He's going to send a helper. I got it all through my whole life. I mean, in the last say 20 years, huge, right? There's no doubt in my mind this stuff's real. And so this is kind of what I'm saying here is that it's the time. Hello, it's time. We're running out of time. And there's never a point when there's out of time. I shouldn't say that because as bad things may get or whatever, it's never too late to turn. I mean, I've seen these movies where you got a guy who's a bad guy or something, and at the last minute, a kid is getting hurt or something, and he ends up saving him and dying in the process. Now, he's got a whole life there of ne'er-do-wellism, if that's such a word. And yet, in that moment, he turns around and saves the kid or saves another person. That's huge. He dies and he goes off into hereafter doing the supreme sacrifice for a fellow human. So, I mean, there's never too late. But you can't plan on that late. Well, I'll keep screwing around until then, and then I'll change, because you never know. I remember my people in my family I've known, they just went to bed and woke up dead. They never woke up. They just died in their sleep. Now, maybe that person was going, tomorrow I'm going to do this. Well, no tomorrow. And so this is why I think it's a crucial time. We're being mesmerized by materialism, sex, special effects. They're gonna come out with, this AI generated stuff, and it's going to be, wow, does that look cool? I can't believe they got the virtual reality mask or goggles and whatnot. I won't touch that. My Amish made a stand. No machines, no AC. I guess some use battery, but they made that stand, and they're out there breaking their backs using oxes and whatnot. But they made that stand there because they said this is an evil thing, and I could see that's a good stand. I mean, I think it's too early, but I understand what they did, and now I'm making my stand in no virtual reality. Not a chance. I don't want to see it. Don't want anyone near me, because it is a siren of pulling you out of reality into the worst kind of materialism that I think there is, which is not even non-material materialism. Virtual reality is not real. It's not, it's not real. So to me, that's the most the worst thing that can happen is somebody live in a virtual reality, because now there's no creativity. Your body atrophies, your physical aspects. It's all it is putting the foot down to the pedal to the metal on entropy. It's just going to destroy you, everyone around you. Drugs do that. Sex does that. Rampant sex, all that stuff does that. The whole idea, whether it be heterosexual, homosexual, trans, any of this stuff, all of that focus is wrong. And all it does is hasten the destruction. Materialism is Satanism, is the love of material, the love of self is the ultimate expression of materialism, and all it does is hasten entropy, which will destroy the material. So just say, I love myself, and as you take and you slap yourself with a 2x4. How's that loving yourself? All right, either you're crazy, or what that shows is what materialism is doing to the material. And focusing on the spiritual will get you use the material to get a better situation, get you better ready for the next level. Because if you focus on material only, it's going to be not pleasant, let me tell you. And this is why I say it sounds to some people old-fashioned. It sounds to some people obvious. They might even criticize some of my ambiguities. But for me, Jesus is the answer. His teachings is the answer. The calling upon God to literally save me out of material death, to save me out of this, to lead me. I want your spirit to grow inside me. I mean, to me, Jesus is a human being who let God manifest fully in him. So, yeah, he's God in the flesh. We can do that. Now, again, there's a process of doing it, and, I'm not, Jesus even said, what I do, you can do more. It's not even, we could do this stuff, but we have to ask God to do it. Why is God sitting there going, I'm not going to do it unless you ask me? No, say pretty please. That's not the point. Satan and the power of this world will push you into doing what they want. God wants you to want what's best. He has all the answers, and he will share in the appropriate time frame. All you have to do is want to walk that way, open your heart to that way. That's why, I think that, Jesus to me is if you look at some of the other sages throughout the years, they got a lot of good stuff, right? Doesn't have it all together. To me, Jesus was the man who allowed God on earth. And